Yeehaw! And welcome to a Southern Thanksgiving. We're doing Talking Tropes back at you with the Thanksgiving
Do
special.
they say do they say yeehaw in New Orleans? I think
Well,
don't they say when the Saints come marching in, I think.
no,
Don't
I don't know anything about
uh
Louisiana.
we're
I
we're
apologize formally to everyone from both New Orleans and Louisiana as a state.
into Cowboys.
Everywhere,
Say
all cowboys
yeehaw.
everywhere.
Yeah, we're back. We didn't quite get to finish last time. There were some technical issues, but we wanted to treat you to. There was even more NCIS Thanksgiving. There's NCIS New Orleans Thanksgiving.
Boom! Mind blown. Who knew that there could be even more NCIS Thanksgiving goodness? And when I say NCIS Thanksgiving goodness, I do actually mean goodness. Because I don't know about you, David, but like my take on NCIS New Orleans is that it is a much better show.
I mean, it's definitely better. The performances are better. The characters are like less annoying. Um, the the location I think is more defined.
Yeah.
Partially by the colon New Orleans, but you know, like being in like Washington D.C. and being in New Orleans, like very different sort of feels to those locales. But I
Right.
mean, ultimately, I do think it is still like heavily like propaganda, like
Right, but I think it's more towards the like Brooklyn Nine-Nine side of like propaganda shows, you know?
very much that where it's putting a friendly face on
Well,
a sort of liberal centrist leaning
right,
face
and
on
they
on
they
cops.
they acknowledge racial issues and
Right.
discrimination and blah blah blah, but you know, they like to gloss over how those are still issues that are kind of happening today.
Right. Which may be why they feel more comfortable broadcasting these Thanksgiving specials this year on CBS and TNT, where I believe they are at some point during the past week, have broadcast both season 1 episode 9 Chasing Ghosts and season 2 episode 10 Billy and the Kid. Um,
Yeah.
so they're festive as usual this year, but they're showing reruns because it's 2020 and everything is hell.
Everything is hell. There's no new things. Um, so yeah, let's dive right in with the first episode, I guess, Chasing Ghosts, which aired originally in 2014, but you know, check TNT and CBS this week, guys. Check your local listings.
I think they already played, and I don't think they're playing it again. But
No,
point being, the it's like 2014 is like the same as this year. It's like everything that's like an issue now. They were talking about it back in 2014.
yeah.
It's not like anything that they could bring up about problems with cops or problems with racism was like just invented for 2020. It's been
No,
here. It's
it's
been
been
here
here.
all along.
Yeah. So this is an interesting one. It starts in the most bizarre way that is totally disconnected from like the rest of the episode. Um, which which the rest of the episode is about solving a really cold case that the black medical examiner, you know, this was like the first case she ever took home and was like, one day I'll solve this, you know, on nights I can't sleep. Ah, her haunts her, you know.
Right. Played by CCH Pounder, Dr. Loretta Wade. Don't just call her the medical examiner. She's CCH Pounder. We love her from The Shield and I don't know, she was in Justice League Unlimited. Like we love her. We love Scott Bakula too. We
We do
love
love
Scott
a Scott
Bakula. We love
Bakula.
Quantum Leap. We love it.
Well, do we love Quantum Leap? I
I
think
do.
Quantum Leap, no, it's take a second to look at Quantum Leap again. It does not hold up, I
Well,
think.
I like Scott Bakula, even though he kind of looks like Jeff Epstein. Uh,
He looks like a nice Southern dad, and that's what he is in this one. Or I'm sorry, is that in Billy and the Kid? That might be in Billy and the Kid.
no, he's a nice dad in Chasing Ghosts. That's what his deal is. Is
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
he gets too involved with his daughter's boyfriends and becomes
So
best friends with them. He's the cool dad.
This is my favorite reversal of the overprotective dad trope, which
I
like
think it still ultimately reinforces the idea that a
nah
dad is like
nah
heavily involved in his daughter's romantic
nah.
relationships.
I would much rather prefer to see every single example of overprotective dad replaced with you just keep becoming best friends with him, dad. Why? I like it 1,000% more. It's like a much more, it's a stupid conflict, but it's still somehow more interesting than I don't like you touching my daughter because I know how I touch women. Like,
Yeah, I mean, it
it's
definitely serves as
gross.
a nice contrast with the brothers who are like in from
Oh
NCIS who are
God.
interrogating all of Bishop's potential suitors. But
Yeah.
still, I don't know. It's just like it's sort of like a wish fulfillment thing to me for like all the dads watching the show to just be like, oh, they're so cool. This is like the cool guy. He's a cool dad whose interests are universally beloved by all of his daughter's, boyfriends, and they become best friends and they're perfect together. To me, it's still like a little weird. Uh, you know, but I guess if I had to choose between the two, I'd pick New Orleans over
Yeah.
regular every time.
Every time. So the crux of this one is there was a Jewish Navy recruiter who was lynched like 40 years ago because he was signing up a lot of black recruits specifically. So just pure fodder for the Nazis, you
Yeah,
know?
sort of. Yeah, ripped from the pages of history kind of thing. I mean, this type of thing definitely occurred, targeting military recruiters who were integrating the military.
Hmm.
Definitely happened.
Yeah.
A lot of things in this episode definitely actually happened, and a lot of them are more fantasy, but still.
Yeah.
Um,
So, they go through the whole rigmarole of finding the current neo-Nazis in town so they find a stolen gun that belonged to one of these
right. I thought
naval
you wanted to
officers.
introduce the really
Sorry.
weird cold open, and then
Oh,
I got kind of
sure.
sidetracked you by talking about CCH Pounder.
No, I mean, so the cold open is there's just a guy running with a bag through like a Mardi Gras parade or
No, it
something.
was a
It's
Thanksgiving Day parade.
but
It's Thanksgiving episode,
it was
Hannah.
Thanksgiving, but it's like also Mardi Gras. I don't understand why this parade was happening.
Well, I just assume that in New
Every
Orleans they
parade
have
in
a
New
parade every
Orleans.
day, and every parade is Mardi Gras. This is how I picture their town, and they're all having barbecue and playing jazz and
Oh my
singing
God.
"When the Saints Go Marching In."
Yeah,
It's the rule.
it's the rule.
But he
And
like
so
falls off of a building while they're
yeah,
chasing him and just like dies.
yeah,
And then
like
they're just
neat.
like going through his bag, and it's like,
Yeah,
oh hey, there's a gun in here.
but
And
it's really
that's
old.
right. He just has an old gun.
Yeah,
And so then the whole episode is trying to trace back, where did this gun come
come
from,
from.
and who killed this guy 40 years ago? Um,
Yeah,
who lynched this guy because
yeah.
he was lynched like with a noose and everything.
Mm-hmm.
Rough. So like,
Yeah.
happy Thanksgiving.
Happy Thanksgiving. Lynchings happened. Genocide is bad. This is
Right.
why New Orleans is superior because
That's the
theirs
other thing
is the
about
real
this,
things.
where it being like kind of like propaganda while still being like trying to be progressive, is Scott Bakula will be saying things like racism didn't end with the civil rights era, because the
Yeah.
people watching these shows have to have that explained to them, and probably many people who saw this episode thought, man, I can't believe NCS just got political.
Yeah, I mean it's very possible. I bet there were some letters to local stations. Yeah. But so, there's just like in NCIS where we have the one episode where Abby, the tech like lab girl, is making Thanksgiving stuff in like weird pots and pans. We get some of that in this one too.
Right. I mean,
Um
I think it's still like about as annoying as it is in NCAS, because they're all just like, oh man, my collard greens are damn delicious. And the other person's like, oh, not as good as my kale. And then we're going to have a greens off.
yeah,
And they're
who
just
can
like
make the best
joking. And it's like,
greens?
okay, I mean, is there not like a case to deal with, or like,
Right.
a human element to this, or are we just going to be talking about greens and collard greens specifically because we're in New Orleans?
New Orleans. Yeah, so that happens.
Yeah, and then there's
um
also I mean they just keep bringing up like the idea that all right, this is something that the NCIS is reckoning with. Like
yeah.
they're going up against something from their past that needs to be challenged.
Mm-hmm.
And Scott Bakula is always talking about like even when we were starting, when I was just starting out, I came across some people with some old fashioned ideas, some old school beliefs, these
Yeah, that's
bad
what it was.
cops
It
that
was
were openly
old school beliefs.
collaborating with hate
Hate
groups
groups.
in order to kill what they considered to be radical
Right.
black activists and just people that they wanted dead.
Yeah. It's very strange. And there's like a subplot where I guess Scott Bakula has some kind of like grudge against like a local town councilman or whatever, and so like his father was potentially involved with this because he was a cop who did work openly with these hate groups. Like they bring up the Confederate Brigade, which was an offshoot of the KKK and
Oh,
whatnot.
was that a real thing?
Is it not? I sort
I
of
just
assumed
figured
it
that they
was.
wanted to make up one in order to. Uh, I thought they wanted to make up a hate group so that they don't
To not
actually have
offend
to
the
offend
KKK?
a real KKK, group. These are the extremist KKK people. That's what I figured. I mean, when I Google Confederate Brigade, it just brings up like the actual Confederate Army brigades. So I don't know if
Hold
that
on.
tells you anything.
I have to find out. All right, you were right.
But something that is real and that did really happen is COINTELPRO,
Yes,
which
yes, they
they
just
bring up as like a the radical overreaching of the FBI cuts both ways. Sure, they targeted a lot of activists and perfectly reasonable black people just for being black. They also targeted Confederate hate groups like the
just for
KKK,
funsies.
and so they like pull all of this like information. They're like, all right, we can finally figure out what was going on, and then they use COINTELPRO, and I think somehow through that's how they figure out that it wasn't actually the KKK who did it. It was just made to look like the KKK did it, and it was
Yeah,
actually just like a lover's quarrel
right.
with this Jew and his best friend who wanted to sleep with his
Yeah.
wife.
I don't know.
Okay.
It's very weird. And it's weird because like the black woman is like, I was so blinded by my desire for it to be this hate group that, it just didn't make me see that, sometimes hate has nothing
Sometimes.
to do with color. And it's like, lady, you're an African American woman in New Orleans in 2014. What are you talking about?
Well, it's true.
Like,
Sometimes people do kill their, best friends over their wives who are
yeah, but generally in the
dying of
South,
cancer.
when it's a Jew being lynched because he's recruiting black army officers, and then the medical examiner is like, yeah, it's a suicide. Like, it's probably the racists,
Right. Well, at least they don't have a scene where they go. I don't think they have a scene where they go back to the racist that they accused and say, like, I'm so sorry I
Oh,
accused you.
yeah. Thank God they do
That
not
would
do
be
that.
bad.
It's very bad.
But there's sort of a I don't know, what do you call it? A promise that the NCIS is now making that all right, we're going to try harder, to make change from within the system. It reminds me how much we still have to do, and how
Mhm.
love can change the world.
That's the like Thanksgiving speech at the end, right?
Yeah, so I
Yeah.
think this is really interesting to show this on Thanksgiving, which, as I said in the previous episode, is like the Americanist holiday. Even
Yeah.
if it's not the holiday that Americans celebrate the most, it's the one that we associate the most with being American, other than like the 4th of July.
Right.
Um, so it's, yeah, I mean, the idea that we're using NCIS to question our imagined past of, American exceptionalism and American goodness, and
Yeah.
bringing up things like COINTELPRO and lynchings and,
Just
civil
racism
rights
in
struggles.
general.
Yeah. And just, yeah, any admission that racism exists in a cop show is sometimes enough for certain audiences. But I still think
Yeah.
ultimately it's saying the best way to solve these problems, let the
Better
cops do their
cops.
job. Truth will win
Yeah.
out. Get the
Yeah.
good cops in. Get Agent Dwayne Pride.
Is
It's
that
the
his
pride of the
name?
South, Southern
Scott
pride.
Bakula's name is Dwayne Pride.
Yeah, he's
Jeez.
got Southern pride.
Oh boy. All right. Well, season 2, episode 10, we get Billy and the Kid. This one aired a year later in 2015, and this one's all about Katrina. It's another cold case, though. It's interesting. It's
Yeah, I think,
like,
Thanksgiving, maybe it's about the past. That's something. I mean,
mm,
we had a lot of episodes in the regular NCIS that were about family. In this
yeah,
one, it's more about reflecting on the past.
and how
So,
we've changed and our mistakes and how we've
sure, yeah.
grown. What we're thankful for, I guess.
I'm thankful that I didn't die in Katrina.
Katrina, yeah. So basically, we get an opening of one of the agents back when he was just a regular beat cop, just
On the
doing his
streets.
job. And he's getting out of Katrina, but then there's a call of a gunshot wound, so he rushes over and he tries to save the guy's life, but it doesn't work. He dies in his arms and his
And he
crying
says, I
wife.
was killed by a man with a blue tattoo of
Mm-hmm.
nothing all
Nothing.
over his face.
Yeah. It was just blobs. And then the cut to modern day, there's a mass murder in a coffee shop, just like very bloody and brutal.
Yeah,
And
there's like a
and
guy came in with a shotgun and just shot
yeah,
everybody.
and a naval officer was involved, obviously, because that's how NCIS gets in on the action.
Yeah, and
Um,
then like in the early NCIS, specials, they all talk about we got to put our Thanksgiving plans on hold. And
yeah,
one of them says, "I'd rather catch a criminal than eat a bird." Anyway, so that's fine.
it's fine. Which, like, I mean, good. That's your job.
Right.
But so yeah, they first find out that it's not a tattoo. It's
Right.
a
Because why would you have a tattoo of just nothing?
yeah, it turns out that it's a medical condition called, I forget. And it's just you get blue splotches on your face because of like exposure to an element or something, right? Am I
Right. It was
remembering that
silver
wrong?
poisoning. Yeah.
Silver poisoning, okay.
Yeah. So it was like
Um,
silver in the water or something.
yeah.
I don't know like how important this is to finding like the next clue anyway.
Well, but
It just seems like they then end up going back to the reason that they connected these two cases was the guy, there was a one witness survived the shooting and he was hiding in the freezer. He was like
yeah.
the owner of the restaurant. And
Hmm.
so he comes out, he's like he said also the same thing about he had a blue tattoo of just nothing. Um and so they connected the two. And so somehow that leads to discovering that it's Argyria silver poisoning.
Yeah.
Um,
Right. But it turns out this is all just a overcomplicated way to show the meeting of Scott Bakula and the Southern agent for the first
right.
time,
Yes.
and how this was the first case they worked together. And back when they worked it, he was a hot shot, out for himself,
Right.
didn't
And of
care.
course, Agent Pride is above and beyond the call of duty. He, even though it's like not necessarily his jurisdiction, like he's just in there and he cares about the people. All right. He doesn't yell at people. He's very nice.
Yeah.
Unlike this hotshot Billy boy.
Right. Um, So I forget exactly how they start connecting the dots. Do
Well,
you do
they
you
just go.
remember?
It seems like the dots don't really connect in this one. They just go
Okay.
back to the freezer guy, and they're like, "Hey, you were in that freezer. Did you know the killer?" And he's like, "Yes, I knew the killer from I was a thief, and we were all stealing money and trying to hide money."
Oh, that's what it is. They find out that there was like there was a robbery of like a naval base or something, right? Or like a naval cash box. I don't remember exactly what it was, but it was something connected with the Navy because that's why Pride gets involved to begin with, right?
Yeah,
He's
well,
tracking
the
it
guy who
down.
died in the husband of
Yeah.
the wife who died, he was in the Marines, but also the the guy in the shop who gets killed, he was in the Marines.
Well,
And then
right.
it was what they say is it's like the storm saved us from a life of crime. So Katrina hits while they're like pulling off their big heist. And then
Right.
they all like go clean and one of them
Or
joins the military.
two of them go clean. Like the guy in the freezer, he gets a job as a fry cook, right? And then the one guy joins the Navy.
Right.
And but then like there's another guy who just like went not clean
Well, I think
because he's
yeah,
the
I mean,
murderer.
I think he was, he went clean and then he murdered these guys to try and
Oh,
get the
okay.
money.
Okay.
But the point is, they talk about, it's the storm. The storm came in and it tore up everyone's lives and it forced everyone to take a new perspective
Yeah.
on like what they're lucky to have, that they're lucky to have their lives, that they're grateful that they are
Yeah.
giving thanks. Um, and then there's just this confusing thing where somehow the money ends up with this guy who they shot in the past in the
Right.
flashbacks,
Like there
and
was like
he hid it in these boxes, and the widow just never opened the boxes because she was so in grief and because the boxes got lost because of Katrina and they had to be recovered, and it was this whole thing, and his body
right.
got lost also because of Katrina. It was all this running around, and it all seems like pretty much pointless because in the end, it's just the killer comes back and holds the widow hostage
Mm-hmm.
and says, "Give me the money. It's probably in one of these boxes."
Right. But then they put the pieces together somehow, and uh he remembers that she had like a stuffed elephant, or was supposed to have a stuffed elephant, but it was missing because they helped the widow deliver her baby because she had like a panic attack and went into labor early.
Right, in one of these like
In one
FEMA
of the
camps
flashbacks. Yeah.
that she was like displaced to one of these FEMA camps, which is also why they couldn't find her stuff or her
Right.
boxes with money in them or her husband's body.
Right. But so, he goes to deliver the elephant and is like, something seems strange. They seem weird. Let's
No,
send
no,
the
it
guy
was a
around back.
ruse. It was
Oh,
a
it was a
ruse,
ruse?
Hannah.
The whole
The
thing was a
point,
ruse?
yeah, he brings the elephant as like a common signal that she would understand. It's not
Okay.
actually her elephant because he
Ah,
says like, I think you left this in the park or something. Like it's a test, and then it's like, is this your elephant? And then if she's not being held hostage, she would just say, yes, that's my element. That's my elephant. Thanks, come in. Or that's not my elephant.
okay.
That's whatever. But she says, no, that's not my elephant. Please leave. And he knows, all right, you're being held hostage. And then boom, they come in the back and they take him out. Bam.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
NCIS saved the day. They find the money.
right. I didn't
Then they
mention that
invite the widow and the kid to Thanksgiving.
the guy who liked collard greens from the previous episode is the guy who's, the main character in this one that you're
Oh, yeah.
showing how they're meeting. But like the whole point is that he's like from Alabama, so he doesn't feel at home in New Orleans or something, or he always wants to go
Right.
home to Alabama.
I don't know. People like make fun of him for it, right? And in the flashbacks, they're like, you Bama boy or whatever, and his dad sends him a plane ticket and is like, come home, son. You can be a cop here. You don't need to be a fancy cop in New Orleans. And, you know, he apparently kept that plane ticket for many years and then rips it up
Right.
in the present day.
Because now he's
It's like,
found his home.
I'm home with you, Dad. Right. And, you know,
Daddy pride.
Scott Bakula's his. Yeah, exactly. He's everybody's dad.
And then they all go to Thanksgiving at a bar that I guess like they own, or this is like their bar that they always go to.
Their hangout.
And of course, there's people playing, you know, playing rhythm and blues like you do in New Orleans, playing funky music, and then Scott
you know, they don't have
piano.
families. Right, they don't. They don't have families to be with during Thanksgiving.
Hopefully, they're being paid like double or something. You know, getting those holiday bonuses.
I mean, one could hope.
But they're just singing "Hey Pocky Away Way" or "Hey Pocky Way." I don't know how it goes.
I don't know. They sing.
But Scott Bakula's on piano.
But yeah, yep. And
so definitely a lot more
whatever.
fun. It's definitely wholesome. But, you know, again, so you have, like, in this episode, you have at least a portrayal of a cop being a jerk, but then ultimately it's just like a character flaw they have to work through, and they have to learn to love being a cop. And that's how they learn to respect women and stuff.
And Black people.
Right. Well, that's all we have. Did we learn anything? Did we learn anything from watching a bunch of NCIS episodes for Thanksgiving, or was this a wasted exercise?
I mean, it was delightful. It was what a way to spend Thanksgiving in America in 2020. Definitely NCIS New Orleans is much superior based on 2 episodes to its predecessor. So that's my big takeaway, and that, you know, I think, like you said earlier, NCIS is concerned with family. Their Thanksgiving episodes tend to be about family, and I think New Orleans tends to be a little bit more about the past and coming to terms with it, and
about place, about, like, you know, the city and the spirit of the city, which is often tied up in the past.
Right. Just because I think, you know, New Orleans has like a much more consistent identity than Washington, D.C. does, whose identity is just politics, you know?
Right. And, and the military.
Right. So.
I mean, but I think a lot of people, the draw of NCIS and why it's been so consistent all these years is because there's a big fandom, and I would call it a fandom for the military, for the different branches of the U.S. Armed Forces.
Sure, why not?
I think it's comparable in some ways to people's fandoms of other, you know, nerd properties. Like,
sure, I mean, it's Spanish
Star
behavior.
Wars or Trek.
It's Spanish behavior the same way people are fans of football teams, you know, like it's not, I'm an Eagles fan. It's no, you're part of the Eagles fandom.
But literally, if you root for another team, you might actually go to jail over it because that's treason.
Well, I mean, it depends if it's the Army Navy game, you know, you're allowed to pick sides there.
That's true.
Just not a inter-branch competition can occur, but you know,
right. But that was a joke. So any government people, any NCIS people listening, you know, that's a joke. But but I think there is something to that.
Government fandom.
But there is something to, you know, the celebration of military in the celebration of family.
Right.
In the celebration of law enforcement, in the celebration of military, in the celebration of our country. So
I mean, yeah,
at least the idea that New Orleans is offering some kind of critical eye to that, it may like just put off the viewers that they normally would have, but maybe it'll get through.
Maybe it brings in those more centrist people, you know, the people who lean a little bit more liberal, but would love to kind of root for a cop, you know, like they don't tell their friends, but they kind of think cops are like, okay, maybe, you know.
They hate criminals, they love cops. Nothing wrong with that.
David and I are also in the criminal fandom.
Well, that's Thanksgiving. I hope you all are social distancing. I hope that
Hmm.
you're staying safe, but I also hope that you are, you know, eating a lot of food.
Yeah, I
'Cause
hope I
it's
hope
a time to eat.
I hope that you are with at least one other person who is within your quarantine bubble and that you're having delicious food together and that, you know, we're getting close. We're talking about moving past this. And
We're
so
gonna
next Thanksgiving
in Jerusalem.
together. Chink.
Uh
Yeah.
Next
uh
year in Jerusalem.
Jerusalem.
Different holiday. All right.
L'chaim. Bye
We'll
everybody.
talk to you later. Bye.